94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
It is 6 minutes after 7 o'clock and getting into the second hour of Kenya's biggest conversation this morning. Just looking at a number of things that are very important as per what Kenya is doing at the moment. But before we get there, CT, DTB, mortgages. I want to take one.
They actually exist, by the way.
Okay.
And DTB stands for Diamond Trust Bank. It's a bank. And it's a bank with a difference in this respect. Beyond just saying they're offering you a mortgage, they're saying, look, why don't you come and talk to us so that we can figure out, given what you earn, given what you have, given what your income situation is, and you're not talking about just what you earn in a paid job, but what you earn elsewhere. Let's see how this can fit into a mortgage. And they're saying, look, we will offer you, whether you are employed, self-employed in the diaspora, mortgages. We can offer up to 105% if you're employed. If you're in the diaspora, we can offer you up to 80%. They have partnered with Kenya Mortgage Refinance Company, an entity within Kenya that is able to access loans that are much cheaper than the ones we offer. And as a result of this, they are able to offer you 9% for your mortgage. That's the interest. If you take it for 10 years, if you take it for 25 years, 9.75. Mm-hmm. And they're saying, look, it doesn't take much for you to have a conversation with us. Simply write to us, mortgages@dtbafrica.com, or visit any Diamond Trust Bank outlet near you. And this information will be availed to you. It all begins with you taking the step of communicating and telling us where you are, and we then take it from you and figure out how best we can be of assistance to you so that you can actually get a mortgage and in so doing get a house.
There you go. And it's all about numbers, isn't it? 1 million people getting into the job market every year with some of the skills that they don't have. And, you know, KCB Foundation looked at this and said, you know what, let's see what we can do about that. And so you take a bunch of folks between the age of 18 and 35 and say, you know what, we can see you. So how about we connect you with an opportunity to get these added skills? You get the skill, you finish after 6 months, we tool you, we kit you, and we even go to the point of giving you credit if you're going to start into a new business, or connect you with a job where your skills then are needed or required. And this goes across sectors and across industries, from, you know, automotive engineering to masonry to beauty and design to photography. I mean, across board. You get into that, and then you get well on your way into the businesses or the jobs that you need to. It's the KCB Foundation 2G program, connecting young people to opportunities in the future. Find out more about this and how you can also click in on the KCB Group /foundation. And then we get into our conversation for this hour.
Ndio barabara itoke Mandera, ikuje Ramo, ikuje Gari, ikuje Elwak, ikuje Kobo, ikuje pale Kotulo, ikuje Tarbaj, ipitie hapa Wajia, iende Samatar, iteremuke Modogashe, ifike Isiolo, iende Nairobi, watu wa Northern Kenya wakae kama Wakenya wengine. Last week or the week before, I was in Northern Kenya, and I did announce a major road artery that will be constructed from Isiolo through Wajir, all the way to Mandera. And many people...
That's the president of Kenya, and he had a couple of things to say about the announcements that he did make last week. And yesterday he was not too happy about the reactions that came as a result of that. We're getting into a Dear Mr. President conversation this morning. Dennis Aseto is here. Dennis, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Very well. Karibu sana.
Asante sana. Good to be here.
Thank you so much for coming and getting into this conversation this hour. Dear Mr. President, we did hear what you said last week, actually a couple of weeks ago when you were in Northeastern, and another promise made of a road that is going to be constructed that essentially would connect communities to opportunities. And we know what happened after that. It didn't take a minute for Kenyans to react to the suggestion that he made about this new infrastructure. And many would say the reasons why Kenyans have complained or made fun of it is because it is not the first time such a promise has been made. And the other times when such promises were made or such declarations were made, sadly, some of those things have not come to pass. Even in the president's former position as deputy president, we were told in 6 months' time, stadia would be completed. I don't know if the stadium in Mandera has been completed. We were told that it would be completed, I don't know, raised from one level to the next. Has that happened? There is a stadium in Wote, which till today, the signage for its construction is covered in trash. What are we talking about here? So that's the reaction, or rather, those are the things that fueled the reaction that came from Kenyans. That you continue to make a long list of things that you want to tell them that you'll be able to do. So, dear Mr. President, Kenyans were not mocking you. Dear Mr. President, Kenyans were taking an experience from which they were part of, and they said, as a result, how are we to believe? So this is the conversation that we're having this hour, dear Mr. President. And when you came out yesterday to talk about the fact that you were upset about Kenyans making jest of your pledge to make this road, that's understandable because you are a human being, okay? But at the end of the day, I think the bigger conversation here is that for Kenyans to come out and essentially make jest of this, that they have heard things like this too many times for them to just let it go.
You know, whenever pronouncements are made that seems to shift from what we consider the norm, they tend to raise some dust. They tend to raise eyebrows. They tend to raise concerns. The nature of political activity and the pursuit of political relevance, which normally translates into acceptance, has to do with talking about the future. And this talking often takes the shape of promises. Now, that communication, once it is uttered by a head of state, is considered by many in Kenya to be the beginning and the end of it. And that is actually a lie. It is not the beginning and end. It is the beginning. There's a continuum that normally follows. And that is why every government have all these bodies that fill what we call ministries, government agencies. That's why they are there. They are supposed to breathe life into some of these things which are uttered by a head of state. If the head of state says, for instance, in the same place that he went to northeastern Kenya, that we are going to remove some of the hurdles that we've had in registering people, it is not his job to explain the details of how that will be done. Why? Because there are people who are employed to do specifically that. And they have access to the media. They have access to the citizenry. They have a duty to ensure that life is breathed into it so that the utterances make sense. Because if utterances are left on their own, all you've done is allowed everyone and their cousin and their auntie and their ancestors to draw whatever meaning they want from it. And guess what will happen? There'll be confusion and there'll be all manner of things. Everybody will have something to say. Why? Because direction has not been given as to what was meant. Remember what was said, what was meant. We don't know what was meant. We know what was heard, what was said, what was spoken of. The people whose job it is to do this, when they do not do what they are supposed to do, then we have the situation that brings about what we now see, where the president is mocked directly. Why? Because it is his conversation that we're dealing with directly. The intermediary activities that are supposed to take place have not taken place.
And as well, City, even as we talk about the president feeling pissed off because of what Kenyans are saying, I mean, at the end of the day, it is a question of, even if we go back to when the president was Member of Parliament, Tarbo North, what did he do? Kenyans are building up on the same. You are the deputy president, the previous government. You were there. You gave promise 6 months. Elgeyo Marakwet will have a stadium. Today, zero. We talk about roads that were to be constructed. When President Uhuru Kenyatta was constructing the expressway, the president said, tutakula barabara. But today we see the road is there. As we talk about the road from Kotula and whatever, it is not a question of telling us you will do it. Do it. You don't need to come tell us that you will construct it, because at the end of the day, people will speak on your behalf. But let's also remember the fact that the constitution that we have says the power to the people.
Right.
We, the people, give this constitution the power that be. The people have put you in office. I mean, any president in this world, any leader would want the people to speak to them directly. Kenyans are just telling you, Mr. President, you have spoken, but you've spoken before. We've not seen anything done. All we're telling you, please walk the talk. Just stop talking.
Kenyans don't believe the president.
No, I don't. I'm sorry.
Kenyans don't believe the president when he comes out and says that we are going to do certain things. They don't believe the president. Why?
Is it that they don't believe him, or they're just disgruntled? Is it that they're hungry? I'm going to take another, let me look at it differently. An angry nation is a hungry nation. Look, 80% of Kenyans cannot afford a healthy diet. As we were speaking, that was a whole crowd you're seeing. But if you looked at that particular crowd, we looked at 35 million Kenyans who cannot have decent meals or just eat. They are facing food insecurity. I'm looking at it in this angle. You call people out there to listen to you, make another promise, but they were not even able to eat. Mr. President, I want you to be genuine, realistic, and not just firm, but look at your electorates. Kenyans are hungry. Mr. President, so far, children are going to school, and parents are hoping at least we can send them there to eat something. But back home, we are covering our faces and you don't know how to explain to our children that I went to work, but my payslip cannot put food on the table. Or really, I don't have anything to bring home to you. Mr. President, the economy seems good before your eyes. Perhaps you say the inflation is doing okay. But the question of how does it translate to my pocket might be taking a little longer. And when you are giving promises of infrastructure and things that Kenyans are waiting to see, there are other things you promised in 100 days. We're seeing some goodies going down fine, Mr. President. But generally speaking, are you taking more from them than you are giving them? Maybe look at the underlying issues. If Kenyans are disgruntled and call you out on certain things you haven't done with a certain level of anger, you need to check, Mr. President, that your nation is not just angry, they are hungry so much that they can see the little things that you expect them not to see, like a promise that has not been fulfilled. Check.
I think that there are quite deep issues here, and that we didn't see one or two people comment about the declarations that were made about this one road. And for me, the declaration of this one road is representative of very many things that you would not get an opportunity to put out or air. So when you see, and this is the thing, and I keep saying, Mr. President, Kenyans want you to do better. Kenyans actually want you to succeed. Kenyans want you to be in a position whereby when you look at the myriad of issues on the table, that you are ticking the boxes, not just in word, but in deed. Kenyans want you to build the road from Elwak to Larry to, I can't even remember all these places, to Kotulo and Mogadishu. Kenyans want you to do it. The people who live along that corridor, who have to take food from market, from farm to market, they want that road.
They'll benefit.
The people who have to transport children to whatever schools exist, they want that road. The people who have to drive from Elwak to Isiolo, they want the road to be done. The people who have to wake up and have businesses along that road, they want the road to be done, because you bring traffic to that road and their businesses will survive or thrive. And this is the thing, Kenyans are not making fun of you because they don't have anything to do, Mr. President. Kenyans want you to succeed. So when you come out and you make these promises, we've been on campaign mode since August 9th, 2022. You've actually been in campaign mode since the last election, and that has not changed. When you continue to tell people that you're going to do something and that you're going to do it in this time, in 1 year, in 6 months, in 3 days, in 10 years, when you come and tell them that you're going to do it and you fail to do it, do you know what you do? You create a situation of lethargy and apathy, whereby they say, you know what, We're just waiting for the next one. Okay, fine, guys. Where is he going next? What is he going to tell us? And let's see what memes and fancy things and T-shirts we can make out of this thing. So Kenyans are not making fun of you, Mr. President. Kenyans are asking you to actually do these things that you say you're going to do. It's a plea. And I hope and I would wish that the people that you surround yourselves with could actually tell you, you know what, sir, this is what Kenyans are saying when they come out in jest. When Kenyans are coming out and they're using the tool of humor, they're passing a message to you. And I wish you would hear what it is that they're saying. They are literally willing you to do it. They want you to succeed. He came out yesterday and said, this is actually a project. Okay, so if it's a project, there's a budget line for it, isn't it? That there are people who've been lined up to get this thing done. Okay,
Yes.
so give people timelines. Do the policymakers and the number crunchers, are they aware that somebody's asked here in the comments, are they aware that there's a budget line for this road? Okay, then let's see it done. Let's see that by this time next year, the road is complete and the businesses are thriving. People are going from farm to market. People are moving now from that road, coming to Nairobi and back without a problem. Let's see that it's actually been done. Or you know what? A year from now, nothing like that has happened. You see the comments that we are seeing. We see the comical issues that have been brought out. The t-shirts that have been printed. They'll be justified in that action.
Yep.
They absolutely will be.
Yeah, and even as you talk about it, I think the most important aspect here is the fact that Kenyans are speaking. And it is their right to speak because the Constitution allows them to do so.
Right.
And when a Kenyan out there is telling you, Mr. President, I am sorry, but I do not trust what it is you're saying or what it is you're putting on the table, it is based on experiences that Kenyans have had with you. Not just with you as the president, but you as a former deputy president who said in 3 months' time. We are living at a time when affordable housing are being pulled up. Please show me a single house that someone can access today. We live in a time when SHA and SHIF is there. Still, access to healthcare is a problem. Last week, there is a meeting that was held by Deputy President Kithure Kindiki, and there was a riot call to the heads of department at the ministry to make sure that this SHA thing works.
Yes.
When Kenyans speak, they are telling you, Mr. President, we gave you the mandate. We respect your office. But, sir, when things do not work as we expect, I'm sorry, but we have to talk. We have to speak.
Let's give an example, and I'm very happy that we can bounce all of these conversations off of the comments that we see coming in from you guys this morning. And my take, I'm going to take yours right now, and this is the truth. AFCON takes place every 2 years on the continent. There was a tripartite representation this year in Uganda, Tanzania, and Kenya. The tournament takes place between January and February every 2 years. It did not take place in February because Chan said, and in a very diplomatic manner, said that some of the facilities that were required for the tournament to take place were not ready. The preparedness process did not take place. It was not ready. So what are they going to do? They're going to postpone Chan to August. Chan has never been held in August in the history of the tournament. Has never been held in August until 2025. 3 guesses as to which country it was that was not ready with their stadia for AFCON to take place. 3 guesses. City?
Kenya.
Okay.
254.
Now, make the connection directly because these are the things that we are talking about. 4 years ago, this president was deputy president. Correct. And it was around this time that he made the pronouncement about the different stadia in the country that were going to be ready for international tournaments in 6 months, 1 year. Now imagine a situation whereby the things that you said you were going to do actually happened. Connect that with what we saw Chan saying this year, that we cannot have the tournament in Kenya because the stadia are not what?
Ready.
They don't even meet standards anyway.
Do you see where I'm going?
Yes, we're following. And I'm looking at even deeper issues because when you look at the surface and say, I am displeased by the manner in which you are articulating your issues towards me, respect your leadership, Mr. President, do Kenyans even feel safe when they come around you? Do they feel safe looking at the next person by them in their home states where they're going back to, in their houses for their children who are on the way to school, to and from? And when they get into the taxis and into those public transport systems, when they walk at night, do Kenyans feel safe? murder cases and corruption should be a thing of the past, Mr. President. You said yourself that you will fight corruption. It will not work. And under your watch, you will not watch extrajudicial killings, disappearances. It would not be within any bit of your governance. But, Mr. President, we have seen young children die by the bullet. Some you have asked if are alive, right? But essentially, we have told you they are not alive. Kenyans are still seeing their kins missing. In fact, some found dead, some alive, some, as we're speaking, cannot even be traced. Mr. President, there is more to what you're hearing. There is pain, deeper pain that I cannot even explain. But what you're seeing in representation just before you, as you're speaking about the roads, they're trying to tell you, Mr. President, there is more that is meeting the eye. Could you give explanations? Can you respect the electorate? It's not just about the roads. There is more that you need. Are they safe? Who is going to use those roads? Are they abductors? Those who would abduct our chiefs? Mr. President, could you make Kenya safe? Safe enough that when you go out to speak to Kenyans, they are sure that you have their best interests at heart. Beyond what you see, there's deeper in those Kenyans' hearts.
As you talk about that, we will reduce government spending. We will tighten our belts. That is the president. After that debacle, when Kenyans went up in arms saying, President, you cannot hire a plane, 200 million shillings to take you to the United States. You can use KQ, pay $1,000 and take you there.
His friend.
Oh, his friend. Oh, yes, his friend. Yes.
Money.
But then again, we still see the very same president who had uttered the same words take 100+ MPs to the African Union
To sing.
to sing.
Can I help you?
Tawala,
Kenya
EU, Tawala.
kipenzi chetu
City.
hatutaya. Can I have a moment with that song?
Kenyans.
No? Okay.
Kenyans have seen the president say, we will tighten our belts. As a government, we will work on expenditure of the Republic. When the very same Kenyans turn around and see you spend their money the way you are at AU taking 100+ MPs, Kenyans will definitely speak.
Dennis, you know, the MPs did tell us they spent their own money.
They said they spent their
from
own
their own
money,
pockets.
they paid their airfare, they pay for their accommodation and everything else. They said that
support.
they spent their own money.
Yeah, the same way the president told us it's the friends that gave him the plane.
Yes. Dear Mr. President, we ordinary citizens don't really understand how government works. And the only way we understand how government works is when we see what government does. We hear what you say, and in our minds, the vast majority of us, you are the government. When you speak, the government is speaking.
Right.
Now, we know you have many people to assist you in your job, but if all they do is do what you are doing, giving us a roadmap, because that's what I call it, the things you say, a roadmap, then they are taking over your job. Because their job is to bring into reality the things that you say. If we're talking about building roads, we can only take the view that those roads have been budgeted for. And there's an entire ministry that is charged with the duty of ensuring roads are actually built. There are agencies within government that are supposed to ensure that whether it is a county road, whether it's a national highway. Let me repeat again. When you speak, Mr. President, we ordinary citizens believe the government is speaking. We ordinary citizens, Mr. President, don't really understand how government works. We know they're ministers, but when we hear you speak and what you say touches on a particular ministry, and those who are charged with the duty and are even called ministers say nothing about it, we assume that what you've said is the beginning and the end of everything that has to be said. But you never talk about the implementation beyond saying this is what the blueprint is and this is what we hope to achieve. It's aspirational. The nuts and bolts of it, Mr. President, we never get to hear. And this is what the ministries and the people in it are supposed to do. I said earlier on, to breathe life into it, to explain, to state, so that when you say it, Mr. President, it is understood that it will be done almost immediately. And anything that has to do with the development is never done immediately, because it has to be planned for, it has to be budgeted for.
Right.
There's mobilization. There are all sorts of things. Mr. President, it isn't too much to ask, I hope, that those whom you've charged with these duties, we have principal secretaries, we have ministers, we have deputies, we have directors. Can they take the time, and you have a whole crew of people who are supposed to help with communication? Can they take the time to make sense so that we, the citizenry, can make sense of the things that are said and give us a time frame so that when we hear something, we have clarity as to when we can expect it to actually get done?
Absolutely.
And please go ahead.
No, go. I mean, I beg you, Mr. President, to hear what it is that Kenyans are saying. That they are speaking, I think is a good thing. Because if we want to look around the world, I think we have too many examples of when people got tired of just speaking, where people got tired of just making memes, where people got tired of make it into a comical affair, where people got tired of printing T-shirts, where people got tired of doing that, and then got into situations where internal conflict took over and then made presidents realize and hear them by force. Mr. President, I think it is good that Kenyans are speaking in the way in which they are. They don't ask you for much. Kenyans want the roads to work. Kenyans want their children to go to school. Kenyans want to be able to go to hospital, as you've promised, and be able to get the care that they need without paying more than they already are. Kenyans don't want to do back-breaking work and then get no results. Kenyans are hard-working, resilient people who are ready to take what it is that you're saying to the bank. However, they're going to need to see some physical implementation of the things that you say. You cannot be on campaign mode for 3 years. You can't do that and keep Kenyans at ransom in terms of things that are supposed to be happening. Kenyans also want to hear about the things that you're doing. And why is it that the things that are happening in government we never hear about? Kenyans also want you to communicate with them about the things that you're actually doing and not the things that you say you will do in the future. Dear Mr. President, we'll continue after this break.
This is the Situation Room. The only way to...
iPhone 16 Pro is available.
This new year, discover something new every day on your StarTimes decoder. Buy an aerial decoder plus 1 month free classic bouquet subscription to enjoy the magic of African stories on ST Swahili, AMC Movies, and ST Nollywood. Tales of adventure that take you far on Bliss TV, ST Kung Fu, Z Cinema, and Nat Geo. Or a dish decoder plus 1 month free super bouquet subscription to watch heartwarming dramas that bring you closer.
Do you want to be my wife?
Yes, David. I want to marry you.
Exciting kids shows to keep the little ones entertained.
You got it, dude.
Experience the thrill of live sports on La Liga and Bundesliga. For every mood, for every moment. StarTimes. Enjoy digital life.
Watu wangu, Januari nawapelekaje? Mimi nanipeleka poa. Kwanza, saizi niko hapa hivi Daka Mamili. Tuko na promo moja hatari sana. Inaitwa Furahia Januari na Daka. Umeshinda 500,000. Hii pesa unaenda kutumia kufanya?
Mi ni Taylor na shona nguo. So hii pesa nitaenda kupanua bizi yangu, niongeze material hivi. And then kama kawaida ninunue kang'ombe, nikunywe maziwa.
Ambia watu wako nyumbani, wale watu hawachezi Daka. Waambie kitu.
Watu wa Matunda, Mount Elgon, Kitale, nawaambia tu mcheze Daka Mamili, ni mchezo wa kweli. Mimi nimecheza na mimi ni mshindi wa Januari.
Furahia Chapana Daka Mamili. Daka laki yako na 20 bob pekee. Changamka, win cash every 20 minutes. Multiply pesa yako times 5,000. Kila draw. Shinda bonus prize chungu nzima ndani ya Daka. It's easy. Cheza Daka Mamili na 20 bob to 2,000. Pay bill 440440. Account KTN. Win cash direct to your phone every 20 minutes. Cheza Daka.
mtoi amevunjwa mkono, imagine. Hata kama ukweli kuvunja mtoi mkono, mtoi yako na shida gani? Si afadhali mkilichuna sisi tu. Sisi
wanaume nalala katikati yao. Hao watoto hawatakuja kufanyiwa vibaya.
Challenges zenye wamadha na mademu wana face kwa street ni mingi sana because unapata wanarepiwa.
Akikunywa pombe, madawa, atuve kusiwa sana.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. Spice FM.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
It's 24 minutes to 8 o'clock. Ndurko, CT Mugador, Anki Doris, and Dennis Aseto with you this morning. Dear Mr. President, a couple of things to say today. And at the point whereby we're saying you want to listen to what Kenyans are saying. Beyond the noise, yes, there is something. I think of it as I'm thinking about it as a baby. So I yesterday, and I just, an example, and I went to see this baby 3 days old whose mother died in childbirth over the weekend. And there's this baby. He has no idea about the circumstances around his birth. He has no idea, right? But he's living through the moment. He's going to open his mouth. He's going to put something in his mouth because he wants to eat, right? He wants to sleep. He's going to cry. And I heard the certain cries. I mean, I've seen this before, but it was in my mind very clear when I looked at this 3-day-old baby yesterday. He cried a certain way, and I could tell, okay, well, something is off here. So they had to change his diaper. That cry ended. And then later, he cried a certain way, and he turned his face to the side, and he opened his mouth. He was hungry. They put something in his mouth. He ate. He fell asleep. Then he woke up a little bit after that, and he cried another way, and he just wanted to be held. And he was held in a certain way, and that cry stopped. But I looked at the caregiver at that point when this child, because this is not his mother, right? She was put in care over him as a result of the circumstances around this baby.
All right.
But at the time of the cry, she was a bit irritated. And until she was told, listen to the cry of this child and you will hear what he is telling you. So you will hear the noise, but what is the message in the noise? So Kenyans want to make a meme. What are they telling you? Kenyans want to laugh. Kenyans want to be comical. What are they telling you? So, Mr. President, can you look beneath, above all of the directions, the noise, and the message that Kenyans are telling you today? Do they need healthcare and have it done properly? Do they want their children to go to school and do so in a manner which the Constitution guarantees? What cry are Kenyans crying? Can you hear the sound of that cry and do something about it? As the person who has been put in a position of custodianship over them, regardless of the circumstances. Can you hear the cry? Check what that cry is telling you and do something about it. Don't get irritated. Don't get irritated because you are the one who is in a position of authority. You're the one who is in a position of care and custodianship. Don't get irritated. Listen to the cry.
And I'll give you a personal story 7 years ago. And this is a story of my eldest brother, Bernard Otieno Aseto. So he got sick, went to hospital, was misdiagnosed. 6 years of treating a disease that was wrong. By the time we're getting back to it, it was far gone, He got a baby. 2 weeks and he passed on. He saw the baby for 2 weeks. And here's a situation where the healthcare system is not working, Mr. President. This is an individual who passed on because the healthcare system that the government, Kenyans fund, that Bernard Aseto is funding, did not come through for him at the time he needed it most. We're talking about a baby who is 2 weeks old, City. I remember the first time I saw baby OJ, and I had a skin-to-skin situation with him. And I broke down because that is something that the father ought to have done. That is a story of Dennis Aseto and Bernard Aseto. But it is a story of very many Kenyans out there who want this healthcare to work, who want these roads to be there, who want to be able to access education, that funding is there, that the government decides to release capitation when they feel like, not when it is necessary. It is a story of every Kenyan. And when these Kenyans speak, Mr. President, it behoves upon you to listen. Remove the veil and listen to the people. Because when you were getting to office, Mr. President, you said, we will listen to the people. Public participation in this country, Mr. President, is just a word. It's just a phrase in the Constitution that never gets to happen. Meaningful public participation is a will that every Kenyan wants to exercise and feel what it means. People of Kotule and Garbatula who need this road, Mr. President, feasibility test, has it happened? Have they been involved? Those who will be permanently moved because this road has to pass on their land, have you engaged them on this, Mr. President? It is not about speaking. It is about walking the talk. Mr. President, when you do this job, you don't need to be on top of these Land Cruisers. Kenyans will say, Mr. President, brought us the road.
Now, we have 2 ears and 1 tongue so that we would listen more and talk less. Mr. President, everybody who wants the best for somebody would appreciate one thing: feedback. Mr. President, you need feedback. Treat it positively. In a scenario that Kenyans would let you do what you want to do and not respond, not tell if it's working or not, how would that help your government? Mr. President, perhaps it's time now to speak a little less. And for those things you have promised, begin to show that you really wanted to do them and not just use them as a campaign vehicle to win the hearts of Kenyans. They trusted you. If the numbers are to go by, they voted you in. Do not let them down. Mr. President, I just want to remind you that when Kenyans come out to offices of ministers and call them out, for example, that SHA is not working, that a patient has gone in to get medical attention, and this is somebody who's ailing, so they're not there to sip some wine or enjoy their stay and look at the infrastructure. They need the attendance and services, and they have to go all the way to the ministry to call out that a system is not working. Days later, they're abducted, and we ask, by whom? When institutions and officials do not show up when the courts ask them to show up, Mr. President, and you're silent about it. When we call out people you sit with and call them to account and explain the disappearances of people, Mr. President, do not then act like you are part of the disappearances when we know for sure particular people who are even captured on camera not abusing or disrespecting your position or your government, but are calling out for real services. And we do not get the answers. Mr. President, we listen, talk less, and then maybe we can begin to say respect is two-way.
Sometimes, Mr. President, I listen to the things you say, and I get the impression that you are sincerely upset because you feel the criticism, as it appears to be, the understanding of what has been said, is misplaced or is inappropriate. Mr. President, there's a gap. There's a gap between what is said should be done and what is actually done. I want to give the example of disbursements, Mr. President. We talk about these things every day in the studio. Mr. President, I want to talk about education, because that is at the nerve center of any nation. We hear of capitation and the disbursement of it. And there's always a discord between what the CS in Treasury says, the CS in charge of education, and what the heads of schools have to say about the same disbursement. I get the impression, Mr. President, sometimes what you're told is not the reality on the ground. So that when the reality on the ground is presented to you by those who are supposed to consume and receive the disbursements, it seems to be in sharp contrast to what you have been told. So you react wondering, why is it that these people have been sent or given money and they're still complaining? Mr. President, that discordance is because the money hasn't been sent or it hasn't arrived. So what you're hearing is what represents the truth of it. My concern here is, what else are you told has happened which hasn't? What are you told about the monies that are supposed to get to a certain destination and never do? And when that money gets to that destination, it doesn't get to the destination as was budgeted for or as was envisioned. Where does the other money that was supposed to get there go to? And this is something that happens over and over again. Who tells you, who gives you the information regarding the activities the government is supposed to deliver in terms of services to the citizens? Because, Mr. President, this discordance is what I believe is often at the heart of the discussions we, your citizens, have with you. And is at the heart of where the displeasure comes in, because we seem to be saying something that is in complete contrast to what you have heard or what you have been informed. Dear Mr. President, the citizens of this country have no reason to lie to you.
Agreed.
The citizens of this country have no reason to be unhappy with you, except when they feel that the services that are due to them for the taxes they pay are not delivered. Then they come to you. They may not come to you in the manner that you find pleasing, but it is you they are coming to. Why do you hear them never mentioning the names of your ministers? Why do you hear them never mentioning the names of your deputy? Why do you never hear them mentioning the names of your PS? It is you they keep talking to. It is you they keep talking about. It is you they address. You're a fortunate president, Mr. President. You are very fortunate.
That people are still talking.
You are a fortunate president that people are talking to you, that your people want to take the time to talk to you. Is it too much to ask that you take the time to also listen, no matter how sharp, no matter how painful, what is said seems to be? Balance it against what you've heard and make sure that what you know is the truth, Mr. President. And then address the needs and the issues that your citizens keep presenting to you.
Do you think that it is that the president is unaware of some of these things, and so that's why he comes out and makes the promises that he does? Think on that for a minute, and let's hear some of these comments that are coming in. Folks, we're listening into, and as you're clicking into the conversations that we're having this morning, Eric Awar goes straight for the guns and says, well, my personal opinion is we can do without a president and have a prime minister instead, and a parliamentary system. Well, okay. Today, we're reading the Riot Act to Mr. President. Well, I think it needs to happen sometimes. Isabel says, well, he doesn't care. He's there purely for selfish gain. I think we're going to read this as well. Odongo says, I know somebody who underwent surgery at KNH last week, and the bill was fully covered by SHIF. Okay. Chris Mora says, it's like playing a good guitar music to a goat. He knows what's happening in Kenya, and he knows it's going nowhere under his leadership. He just doesn't care. He's in business. Oh, my goodness. So, I mean, here we are, and we're just saying, having this conversation this morning, I think, do you think the president is unaware of some of these things?
I refuse to think the president is unaware. Because, fortunately, we have the most learned president we've ever had in this country, who's aware of what is happening. Remember, the president's campaign was based off the feeling of Kenyans. He's the president who was speaking to the young Kenyans. You remember that saying of Sipangwingwi that was really targeted to the young people.
Became a song, right?
And the young people that we talk about today are the very young people who are telling Mr. President, you promised us millions and millions of jobs. Unfortunately, the millions and millions of jobs today have turned to be jobless Kenyans who are entering the market every year because the cost of doing business is high. Talk about the taxes that are being given to companies out there who are forced to retrench and send people home because they can't do business in the country. Mr. President, that is the situation on the ground. Mr. President, today we have a republic that is 80% learned. Kenyans who are out of universities, colleges, They want these jobs. They're not jobs, Mr. President. You made the promise. When they are out there to tell you, Mr. President, you give promises that you are not fulfilling, Mr. President, they are speaking to you. Listen to what they are saying. We're not saying there is a solution on jobs out there, but give us a way out. Tell us the policies you put in place, you know?
And I want to agree with Aseto. Mr. President, I also refuse to believe or agree that you whatsoever are not aware of what's happening on the ground. Mr. President, you are one of the presidents who has been criticized by some of your friends, old friends or allies then, that you actually are so aware of what's happening on the ground, more than your team should be, so much that sometimes they fear that you could be micromanaging your team. Mr. President, you said, to your own cabinet ministers that you know so much in some of those ministries, more than the ministers, that even then caused you to warn them that they ought to be in touch with the ground. Mr. President, aren't you the one who's been doing town hall meetings to hear from Kenyans and engage them? But haven't we been talking to you? Are you really taking the notes just to keep them in your library? Or are you planning to take action? Because, Mr. President, in the next town hall meeting, Kenyans will be demanding that you show them what it is they have been asking you to do. Mr. President, you're a young president. You go for exercises for a reason. That every morning you go to the office very early to those retreat meetings. You are praised for keeping time. Mr. President, could it translate to real action? That when you go to those global meetings and get your stand innovation, there's a reason to actually give you that applause back at home as well. Think about it, Mr. President. Kenyans are still giving you this chance, a number of years, that you will win the elections if you ought to, legitimately, that they actually voted you based on, yes, we saw him work and we need him in that chair another 5 years. But if not so, Mr. President, Kenyans are smart, they are woke, and they speak when it is necessary. Do not forget the Gen Zs, Mr. President. You joined the X platform to listen, not a mockery. If the young people gave you the audience and you gave them the same, Mr. President, it is my call and my trust that you will truly and genuinely begin to not just be Mr. President, quote unquote, but Mr. President.
I want us to look critically at that. Again, I'm going back to the resilience of Kenyans that, in spite of the situation, Kenyans are still, putting one foot in front of another. The Kenyans are still waking up every morning and still doing what they need to do to get ahead. That in spite of the things that we see happening politically, whether we see them happening regionally, whether you see that an economy that has hit people so hard, that Kenyans are still going at it every day. And this is why I am saying that it is a direct endorsement of that feeling that the president must actually do better. And that they're still speaking, that they choose to use jest as a way to deal with these matters is something that you should actually embrace, and wholeheartedly so. That honestly, don't take it personally, Mr. President. Don't take it to heart. That we can understand that, yes, you are a human being. Everybody is, and it would bruise you. It would bruise you. However, listen to the thing behind what Kenyans are saying. Wouldn't it be a wonderful thing that they would be able to say, yes, actually, this is what we said, and it was actually done? Wouldn't it be a wonderful thing that you could look back on the last 5 years and said, you know what, Kenyans really put me to task to make sure that certain things that I said with my mouth, with your own mouth, said that I was going to do, that we actually got done?
You see, Ndu, it is, I went through the 844 system, 7 subjects, agriculture, arts and craft and whatnot. And it was a time when public schools were competing with private schools. Private schools were not the talk of the day because public schools used to perform really, really, really well. That has changed today. No one trusts that public schools will be able to deliver. And that is the situation on ground, because any government that is in place should ensure that its citizens are able to access the best there is, the best of qualities that there is, And we live at a time when, if you want to get married, you're told to remove the veil to confirm, that entire thing that goes around. Mr. President, remove the veil. Look at the darling in front of you, who is that Kenyan who's speaking to you. Listen to what they're saying and deliver. Because, Mr. President, Kenyans like you. And the fact that they're speaking because they want you to do better. If you refuse to do that, it's a different story.
You know, it is said that when people are fed up with you, they tell you nothing.
Yeah.
True. Silence.
They feel there's absolutely nothing to talk about, and so they're mute.
Yeah.
Mr. President, there are those who argue that you carry the burden of the entire cabinet. Mr. President, you don't earn their salary for them, they earn it themselves. Is it too much to ask to let them carry their own burdens? Let them rise or fall with the ministries and the decisions that are made within their ministries and the implementation of it. Let Kenyans see the people you appointed do the job they were appointed for. Let us see them for what they are. Let us see them unprotected. Let us see them unshielded. Let us understand them for who they actually are. Is that asking for too much, Mr. President?
And I think as well, City, today, if you ask any Kenyan today, are you richer today as compared to when the president was taking office? Or are you poorer today? Because the pay slips, the taxes and everything have gone into that. Ask a Kenyan. Don't rely on all these stats that you're being given. Just talk to a Kenyan out there and they will tell you, Mr. President, the situation on ground. Because kwa ground, mambo ni different.
Tofauti. And Mr. President, you know what? I want to travel. I want to travel to Tanzania. I want to travel to Uganda. I want to travel to DRC. Mr. President, maybe one time I might just want to be the AUC chair as well. Please do not do anything that will sabotage my dreams as a young Kenyan. Mr. President, please explain to me, if you get to hear this, what is the way forward with Sudan, Mr. President? Have you made consultations? We are seeing you, according to experts, and I believe and I trust that you speak to experts and that you take advice, Mr. President. I choose to trust that you will listen to experts when you're doing budgets and when you're doing this, quote-unquote now, what analysts are calling diplomatic blunders. Mr. President, like I said, Africa is my continent too. Make it easy for me to go somewhere and say, hello, my name is Anki Dorisombat, and I am proudly Kenyan. I don't want to be judged, Mr. President, for either celebrating atrocities or not being comfortable enough to speak to my fellow Africans. I understand you're a Pan-African, Mr. President. Make it easy for the next generation of Kenyans to equally stand where you are in the coming years. Mr. President, diplomatic ties are not just exciting moments. I believe you'll make the right decision and come out and explain what move and plan you have for us as a country. Thank you, Mr. President.
It's good to get feedback from your people and hear what it is that they have to say, and are pleased that you listen to the message behind what you might see is the noise. And that's dear Mr. President for this morning, and just hearing that beyond the noise there is a message, and Kenyans are telling you something, willing you to do better, willing you to put all the people that you've appointed in positions to do better and deliver on the promises that you made to Kenyans. Dennis, thanks for being here this morning.
Asante sana.
I want you to have some yogurt with Delamere. Have an moment. You like strawberry? I'm not asking. You like strawberry.
Like strawberry.
There you go. Yeah. Real pieces of strawberry in that Delamere moment, and have a moment after this exhilarating hour, won't you?
Dennis,
yes.
You like strawberry? Yes.
Yes.
And City has denied me something today.
What?
Proverb.
Oh, the proverb of the
Get
day.
out of here.
Well, I will say it quickly. Even if a goat frowns, someone will still buy it at the market.
There you go.
Oh, yes. Eid is around the corner.
Oh, yes. I'll be coming.
It's 8 o'clock.